Patrick's Parabox is a Sokoban style block pushing puzzle game, and immediately this video feels far more natural on the channel than the last one. Patrick's Parabox is back to basics square grid Sokoban gameplay in an anything but basic world. The goal of each level is very simple. Every square target must be filled by a box, and then you move onto the tile with the happy face. But the process by which you get there has the potential to melt your brain. The twist of Patrick's Parabox is that the boxes you push around can also be rooms for you to move about in. The way this works is that some boxes contain more playable space within them, and if you push them they move, but if you push into a side with an opening and the box can't move away from you, then instead you will squeeze down inside that box. Similarly, you can leave a room and expand out of it to fit the new scale you occupy, perfectly sized to look back at that old box and start pushing it around. While Sokoban games are typically about manipulating objects through awkward spaces, Patrick's Parabox is more a game of manipulating the space itself. By pushing one box inside another, a cramped puzzle suddenly becomes quite open, because inside just this one tile is as much space as the rest of the level combined. This is a game about boxes within boxes, but what really defines Patrick's Parabox is when you get boxes within themselves. Patrick's Parabox is a puzzle game that plays with recursion. Levels that contain themselves contained within themselves. Multiple versions of the same room spanning across multiple dimensions of scale, each with their own Patrick within them. Travelling through recursive spaces is weird and surreal, and it makes for a great puzzle environment. This exit below me here is also this exit over here, and so when I move out of this box, I'm also moving into this box, but now just over here. But this is good because now I can move it. But I also need to push it back down again, and if you're on the ball you can probably see how to do this, which is realising that if I move in here, I'm also coming in here. And to paraphrase another game, now you're thinking with recursion. And these are the ideas that make Patrick's Parabox so interesting to play. The spaces you're moving in are things that you can manipulate that exist within one another or within themselves, and the solutions you need to figure out to solve the levels will span across multiple scales, requiring you to really think about how rooms within rooms interact and understand a very new definition of space. Hold on a minute. If there's a box and the only thing around it is itself, then what happens if I move it to the edge of itself? I break everything. Cool. There's a great combination of the Sokoban gameplay and the weird structure of how space works. I need to get this blue box down here and then push it to the side. Impossible. Unless I use the green box to make more space. I need the recursive nature of the blue box to move the green box down off the wall so that I can put the blue box in the green box and get everything in position. And just as it looks like the plan falls apart because how can I get into this green box without moving it, I can shift focus to a different scale and realise that actually, I'm already inside it. You go from a recursive box inside itself to an alternating recursive pattern of box 1 in box 2, and the solution relies on the fact that a change you made on a scale that's smaller than you changes the state in the scale above you too. And these are the sort of tricks that Patrick's Parabox will play with. There was another puzzle quite early on that involved boxes A and B inside box A, where you had to move box A inside box B so that you could go into box A again inside box B and push another version of box B out into itself, and now there are two copies of box B that you can interact with when there wasn't before, each with a copy of box A inside them. And there was a moment as I solved it where I just stopped moving, and I remembered that moment, and it was because even though I had just solved the puzzle, my brain momentarily broke as I tried to figure out how. It was less of an aha moment and more of a, wait, what? But regardless, it was equally as powerful and my mind was very much blown. In its theme, this game is just brilliant. There is a magic to playing around in these sorts of impossible spaces, which is something you can only do in video games. Good puzzles always make you feel smart with their mechanics and their solutions, but having these clever topics of recursion and infinity is this little brain-melting spice that adds extra satisfaction just from the theme. And yet, despite containing a lot of quite complex ideas, Patrick's Parabox actually isn't very difficult. And I know I play a lot of Sokoban games and difficulty is subjective, but what I mean is that within any setup of boxes, there actually aren't going to be that many ways that you can meaningfully interact with them. If there are 2 entrances or exits on a box, that's only 2 ways that you can really go. If there are 2 same size rooms, you could try putting A in B or B in A. That puzzle that I showed before, where step 1 is to push a green box out of both blue boxes simultaneously, well, you might do that because you've realised that's how to solve the puzzle, or you might do it because it's literally the only thing you can do. Even towards the end of the game, there still isn't a vast number of possibilities in every level. If you have a basic understanding of the mechanics, the decision space is actually pretty manageable. So despite a challenging sounding theme and puzzles that are conceptually very hard to solve, Patrick's Parabox actually stays quite beginner friendly. The game introduces, or at least starts to make use of, a range of other mechanics as the game progresses. You get clone boxes that act like teleporters into their original. You get boxes that can only be entered from another box of the same scale. You get mirrored boxes that invert everything left to right, and also combinations of these things to add complexity and depth. And these build towards some final stages that are an exceptionally thematic crescendo to the game and a wonderful way to finish. The game's visual design is really neat. It's remarkably simple with just squares within squares, but the design choice to inset the levels slightly so that you can see the scale above you is great for both gameplay and a sense of place. The soundtrack is light, fun and relaxing, and composed by Priscilla Snow, who also made the soundtrack for A Good Snowman Is Hard to Build, one of my all-time favourite Sokoban games. My only negative with Patrick's Parabox is that in the game's 350 puzzles, I felt there was a little too much filler, even though the Steam description disagrees with me. In a game that isn't for the most part exceptionally difficult, there were a few too many puzzles where the solution was trivial, or the obvious first guess led to the correct answer. The puzzle count also includes each new section's obvious tutorial puzzles, and some of these teach very simple interactions that you probably could have just learned on the job. Patrick's Parabox is like No 41 because it's all killer, some filler, and I think I would have preferred the number of puzzles to have been curated down a little further. The good puzzles were great, but there was the occasional dud between them. But having said that, maybe that's part of the charm. Patrick's Parabox has launched incredibly successfully for a game in this genre, and the very clever theme combined with remarkably accessible gameplay might well have something to do with that. Patrick's Parabox is a really solid game that I think a lot of people will enjoy regardless of their experience with Sokoban and puzzle games. Just like the game itself, the puzzles appear small and simple on the surface, but when you drill down there is a lot of depth. The recursive mechanics can be clever, complex challenges to think through, and yet puzzles become much more accessible with just a hint of trial and error. I'm still working my way through the challenge levels now, and I've had a huge amount of fun playing through this excellent addition to the Sokoban genre, where it's boxes all the way down.